Cannabis Company just got fined $8,000 for violating advertising rules. Maryland Cannabis Company, Curio Cultivation LLC, and Curio Manufacturing LLC have agreed to pay an $8,000 fine for violating state advertising regulations. The Maryland Cannabis Administration, MCA, found that the companies advertised their products at events where minors were present and did not provide data demonstrating at least 85% of the audience was over 21. According to the consent order, the violations occurred at 2 events. The Hot August Music Festival, held in August 2023, the festival advertised activities specifically for children and families, and Curio displayed a logo branded tent at the event. The Baltimore Running Festival, held in October 2023, the festival allowed participants of all ages, including a designated kids fun zone. Curio sponsored the 5K race and had its name and logo featured on marketing materials and participant lanyards. Maryland cannabis advertising regulations outlined in the Cannabis Reform Act and Code of Maryland Regulations prohibit targeting individuals under 21 and require specific audience data for advertisements placed electronically or in public locations. While acknowledging the violations, the consent order notes that Curio cooperated with the investigation and remains in good standing with the MCA. The companies will pay a $500 fine for the Hot August Music Festival violation and a $3,500 fine for each violation related to the Baltimore Running Festival, totaling $8,000. The consent order is a public document. I think this is interesting for a few reasons. One, because think of the children as such a interesting notion, because there are so many things that much more blatantly advertise to children and much more blatantly cause a problem, like edibles shaped like normal kid gummies. So I think that this is an interesting situation in Maryland. I also do think that this is a warning for everybody who's like, oh, they're never going to enforce any of these things, that, well, they just might. And $8,000 is a decent sized fine. Obviously, we pay a lot more in taxes and other fines, and it probably could have been a bit more hefty, but $8,000 for this seems like a pretty big L, considering these events and music festivals and races are very expensive to sponsor in the first place. So these guys shelled out a lot of money just to shell more out after the fact. So run your data, make sure you know where, when you can advertise and how, and try to be aware and see what you guys think.
Man, so these guys did an event, advertising their stuff, and that's what they're getting fined for?
Yeah, they advertised at an event that had children's areas and was an all-ages family event. Sort of like a state fair.
But like, it's a real technicality, because it's not like they were handing out pre-rolls. They sponsored a 5K running event that was all ages, and their logo was on the marketing material. So they got caught on a technicality, but I don't think anybody can argue that they knowingly marketed to children.
Yeah, I think that's a weak ass argument. If I was this company, I might push back on this fine and try to tell them that it's an unjust fine and do everything.
Well, they didn't. They cooperated and didn't meet the burden of providing data that showed that 85% of the audience that was being marketed to at said event was 21 or older. So there was that burden of proof that's built into Maryland's laws, where if they could have pushed back and said, "Hey, no, we ran the numbers."
But if the event organizer would have been able to produce some type of documentation in regards to that, that would have got them off.
It's not the event organizer's job to understand the laws of which they have to operate inside of.
Yeah,
or to be able to acquire those kinds of analytics and metrics of the attendees, especially if it's a public event. I mean, what are you going to do? Ask everybody their age as they go through the front door?
Well, most of those people are registering, and so that's a good metric right there.
I think they were smart to not push.
The music festival, they're not registering like that. Like, sounds like it was an outdoor community.
Well, music festival, they're selling tickets. They sell tickets online, so everyone's getting registered.
Well, then maybe they should have done that, Jason, but I don't know. I mean, I think in this case, it's not the event organizer's burden of proof. It would fall on the person who is doing the advertising and their compliance.
I agree with that part, but what I'm saying is this, is that if you're an event and you want me to sponsor your event, then you need to provide me some type of metric, so then that way I can cover my ass in this advertising expenditure. And it should be very easy for them to do. It should be extremely easy for them to do.
Well, this is why people get mad at me at work, because my job is to be the really cool idea, but you can't fucking do that, girl. So, I mean, that it's their burden of proof. And the event organizer, how are they supposed to know they need a cover your ass metric? Unless I ask them, unless I'm like, all right, I'm looking at this opportunity, looking at the risk reward here. Ask the festival if they can provide us age data.
Mm-hmm.
If so, then run it. If not, then probably.
I just think it would be very
$8,000.
easy. I think it'd be very easy for them to get this information from the event company. That's all.
But
they didn't provide it, and they paid $8,000 instead. So I don't know, Jason. Maybe call them.
At the end of the day, this boils down to compliance, which is the driest but probably most important part of the industry. And if you don't have somebody who's into compliance on your team or outsourced or a consultant, you done fucked up already. And it reminds me of the story that was covered last week around Mike Tyson's ear bites having to be reformulated as boxing gloves because it was a human body, and you're not allowed to have human body, anything that looks like a person. And so that's a perfect example of something that should have gotten caught by a compliance person. A compliance person in cannabis is like an underwriter in insurance. Their job is to just be a wet blanket and say that's a great idea, but you can't do it. And so to me, this just reminds me that creative entrepreneurs need to have the limiting influence of a compliance consultant to remind them that not all great ideas or initiatives are going to be able to get through that lens of what is permissible.
You have any thoughts?
This reminds me, you guys, I'm having the Children's Psychedelic 10K this weekend in Santa Rosa. Free LSD for all children under 18.
Oh, boy.
If you need a compliance director to shut all those ideas down, Mathieu St. Germain, you can find me at
also a free nitrous tank for the winter, because
well, now we're fucking talking. You just changed the whole thing up. Mm-hmm. So Wawa's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Kids high on drugs again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are going to keep this thing rolling. We're going to roll into our final commercial, and we're going to be right back.